Good evening. Welcome back for another episode of Behind the Ballot podcast. And we have a lot to pick up on from our last episode on Friday. We have a lot to talk about, a lot that has happened, and a lot to update. Muhammad may be joining us today. He is running a few errands, health related stuff. So if he's able to join us, great. If not, we will continue on. And hopefully, we do have him on because we know that our listeners do appreciate his perspectives on all of these issues. But without further ado, we're just going to jump right into it with the global updates, focusing on, of course, the US Iran war, the Israel government, and the Latin America takeover. And then as we move to the domestic side of things, that's where we're going to be focusing on various pieces of legislative action, AI data centers, as always, midterm elections, the Supreme Court, and the economic outlook from the United States, as well as with the middle class. And so we're just going to get right into it. And let's open with the biggest international story right now. So, the high stakes on the knife's edge US Iran peace negotiations. President Trump has called Iran's formal response a piece of garbage that he didn't even finish reading, and describing the talks overall as being on massive life support. And he said that today during a press briefing. And following the deadlock, President Donald Trump is reportedly considering restarting military action against Iran and is set to meet with senior generals later today. And options under discussion involve reviving Project Freedom to provide U.S. military escorts for vessels through the Strait of Hormuz, as well as renewed strikes on remaining identified targets inside Iran. It should also be noted that before we just got on, UAE actually conducted a secret attack inside Iran. And President Trump will be holding a Situation Room meeting with the large group of generals on Iran. And following Iran's rejection of the latest U.S. proposal, a U.S. Navy Ohio class nuclear armed ballistic missile submarine, identified as the USS Alaska, has publicly docked in the Gibraltar with Royal Marine security and a 200-meter exclusion zone. So, where it docked at is right outside of Iran, actually. So, it allows for further military pressure, which is what we've talked about on this podcast, that the United States and Trump administration is solely focused on just on the military pressure aspect of it. So basically stating, if this deal, doesn't come to fruition, because we know that the enrichment clause is really the sticking point within all of this. I've been seeing reports that Iran has talked about going down in uranium, but they are not strictly prohibiting themselves from producing uranium at all. That is basically off the table for Iran. And then any proposal that includes that is just not going to be considered. It's going to be laughable in the faces of the Iranian regime. And it's something that the United States and Israel is going to have to understand to be able to put a stop to this war, and not just to have ceasefire on ceasefire on ceasefire, with the blockade still going on and all of these economic pressures, military pressures that the United States is doing on Iran's side. They're just basically waiting out all of the global economic pressures that have been hitting the United States, which we've talked about on this podcast. And really wanting to zoom in on the Strait of Hormuz itself. The military and economic pressures are very much intensifying. And at the same time, more than 40 countries are also preparing to coordinate contributions for a European-led naval mission, with UK and France taking the lead. And it would include mine clearing, convoy escorts, and air policing once any ceasefire is locked in. Iran's deputy foreign minister has already warned that any such foreign development would be viewed as a major escalation and would trigger a decisive and immediate response. So I know earlier within this year, you had Donald Trump calling on, Europe and Japan, South Korea to kind of step up and form an alliance with the United States to go over and take the Strait of Hormuz. So now we're seeing that the European Union is just going on their own at this point. They don't see the importance of having the United States within this set group that is looking at putting in contributions to be able to assist with the clearing of mines and escorting and also air policing once the ceasefire is locked in. So it is very moving to see that the UK and the EU are going within this route. UK and France teaming up together, leading this operation, really tells that they're stemming away from that United States hegemony of us being the leaders within that region, and now it seems that they are stepping up to that plate. And compounding on this crisis, a massive oil spill estimated in the tens of thousands of barrels has been reported off Iran's Crag Island. On the digital front, Iran is moving to assert full sovereignty over the 7 undersea internet cables that run through the strait. Cables that carry roughly 15 to 20% of global internet and financial data traffic between Europe, the Gulf, and Asia. Foreign operators would be required to obtain permits, pay transit fees, and operate under Iranian law, with all management and maintenance handed to Iranian companies. The IRGC has previously signaled it could target these cables if needed, if these strikes continue on from the United States and Israel. And with all of this going on, you have the Saudi Aramco CEO Amin Nasir describing the ongoing energy shock that began in quarter 1 as the largest the world has ever experienced it. And that's really how it is, because I was even talking, about my mom about all of the things that are going on with gas and oil and so forth. She was like explaining in like the 1980s how you actually had long lines and for gas, and you could only fill up your car only so many amount of times throughout the week, and they had a lottery for it. So it's seeming like if this continues to go on, we could very well be headed down that road. Now, I know that could be, months, a year ahead, but it is important to start mapping out what the possibilities inside the United States can look like when it comes to oil and this shock, because we're going to touch on it. The president is considering temporarily suspending the federal gas tax. And I know that the legislature, GOP, and Democrats are looking to take up that bill next week, but we will do have a section on that as well. And this proposal about the IRGC wanting to cut the cables comes on the cusp of all of these attacks that have been continuously targeting Iranian leadership and as well as energy infrastructures. And Israel has reportedly submitted a plan to the United States to commence a new wave of strikes on Iran that could last 1 to 2 weeks, with options for extension. This is including targeting senior IRGC leadership, such as their commander in chief. And the proposal was reportedly discussed during today's urgent call between Benjamin Netanyahu and President Trump. The Israeli government is also pressing Trump to authorize a high-risk special forces operation to recover and or secure Iran's enriched uranium stockpile, which we've already secured the uranium from Venezuela from when we went over there and removed Maduro. Israeli officials say Trump is hesitant because the mission carries significant operational risk. I'm glad to see he's actually hesitant on something that Israel is requesting, finally. And then on a 60 Minutes interview, Netanyahu declared that the war in Iran is not over because nuclear material and enrichment sites remain inside Iran. He revealed that Trump told him, I want to go in there with joint US Israeli special forces to seize the enriched uranium. Iran today has formally refused any nuclear discussions until the war ends, repeating its very well known and long standing position that nuclear issues can only be addressed in a separate agreement after a ceasefire. And that is something that the United States and the Israeli government is not understanding realistically. And it's just sad to see that we're having this administration getting an earful basically from Israel on wanting to have special operations and or military strikes in the air in Iran and renewing this conflict, which President Trump, Marco Rubio, and all these other individuals have stated we're no longer in that phase of the war. And then you have on the Israel front, which we were going to get into, Prime Minister Netanyahu has publicly stated that he wants to wean off Israel off United States financial and military aid entirely, bringing it down to zero and shifting the responsibility toward a more reliant partnership. Now, this is not a new position. Israeli leaders, including Netanyahu in his first term as prime minister in the mid 1990s, has been voicing ambitions to gradually reduce dependence on American assistance since the 1990s, with early pledges focusing on phasing down economic aid while building a domestic defense industries. Now, let's just dive into really just that piece of it, that they want to be self-reliant and they just want to be able to you know trench on in Gaza, trench on in Lebanon, attack Iran without having someone being in their ear telling them no. That's basically what you can summarize from this, that Israel wants to have no oversight when it comes to its military actions. And there never will be a point where America is not in some financial or military way supporting Israel, unfortunately. I mean, it could come with a Democrat or Republican president after, years of years of negative coverage from Israel. As we know, like in social media, their image has gone down time and time again as more footage of Lebanon and Gaza continues to come out. But yes, they're very much slowly dying in the media aspect. And they seem to think that they want to remove themselves as being a partner with the United States, just go on their own and be able to have enough resources to be able to back their own selves up. Now, I think that would be great on the American taxpayer because we no longer will have our, funds going to genocide and so forth. But however, it's important to note that we still can't have Israel as a government going around and commencing genocide and targeting various nations left and right just because they have the resources and can. And from all of this that has been going on, there actually has been a widely discussed new Atlantic article that argues that the United States has suffered a decisive, irreversible strategic defeats in this conflict, with Iran emerging stronger and still controlling key choke points. The same outlet notes that both U.S. allies and rivals are finding President Trump's increasingly unpredictable and hard to trust on foreign policy. The piece written by Robert Kagan, which is important to note, he is a prominent neoconservative foreign policy analyst, historian, and senior fellow at the Brookings Institution. And he carries extra weight because Keegan is a leading voice in the interventionist foreign policy establishment. He co-founded the Project for the New America Century, the influential neoconservative group that played a major role advocating for the 2003 Iraq war and regime change across the Middle East. Kagan, also has long pushed for assertive U.S. action and maximum pressure campaigns against adversarial regimes like Iran. His conclusion that America has essentially lost this war represents a very striking admission from within those hawkish circles that the United States has lost this war. And that view is echoed very much on the public sentiment side. You have a YouGov poll which shows 62% of Americans believe the US lost the war, while only 13% think it won. this war. A Pew survey published last month found 60% of U.S. adults now view Israel unfavorable, up nearly 20% in just 4 years. And then Yahoo states and blames the rise of social media for this decline. Like, no, it's not the rise of social media. It's the fact that you are killing innocents and bulldozing innocents and killing women and children, all on the guise of wanting to expand Israel's borders and stating to be willing to kill evildoers such as Hamas and the Kurds and all these other tertiary groups. That no, like just because you think that social media is bringing down your appearance, and that's the reasoning why you want to attack it, and why 60% of U.S. adults have a bad view of Israel, is just a non-self-aware answer to all of this. Because if he was self-aware, he would understand that the atrocities that he is committing leads to individuals not to like Israel, not even to stand for Israel on a number of issues. I mean, even during the most recent Kevin Hart roast that was on Netflix, you had people bashing Zionists within that area, and that's the core group of the Jewish population that Americans are having an issue with. It's the Zionists that believe that they're better than their average Americans, and that they put Israel above the United States, and thinking that the United States should follow that same suit, which is not the case at all. But obviously, he continues to blame social media and insists that these negotiations are a not surrender, but a pragmatic step to end the conflict and restore safety in the strait. Trump is also expected to press Chinese President Xi Jinping on Iran during their upcoming summit. Reports indicate that Trump and Xi are considering a major deal that would allow China to invest up to $1 trillion in the United States, primarily to build factories on American soil. And I remember all of the uproar before about, not wanting Chinese companies or individuals wanting to buy land or even put up industries. I even seen not even wanting them to sell Chinese cars within the American marketplace. But now we're seeing that President Donald Trump is bending his knee and looking to allow China to invest up to $1 trillion, even though they have been backsmacking all of our sanctions that we've been putting out regarding these tankers, and they are basically trying to reestablish the global leadership order within the world. But yes, we're going to allow them to invest $1 trillion into the United States, and that very well could be a sticking point to possibly get China further into these talks, to have a further heavy hand between all of these talks. And now wanting to turn to Latin America. So for Latin America, there has been leaked audio recordings reported by El País, and they have exposed what appears to be a coordinated U.S.-Israel effort to destabilize progressive governments in the region. The tapes allegedly show former Honduran presidents who was backed by Trump work, and also supported by the Argentinian president as well, working with Benjamin Netanyahu's involvement to set up a US-based media platform for spreading disinformation aimed at undermining the administrations of Mexico's and Colombia's two presidents, basically wanting to undermine those individuals' administrations, basically what they can get accomplished. And that's important to note because we have been pointing to Cuba to be the next scuffle, you could say, right under the United States. I know Trump has been increasingly frustrated with a lot of the sanctions and the blackouts that happened in Cuba, that there has not been no uproar from the civilians to overtake the government, but it seems like they may be pushing for some military action to take place in Cuba. So definitely look out for that in the coming weeks. And now we are going to transition right on over to our domestic update, where here we will have talking about legislative action, the AI data centers, midterm elections, Supreme Court, and economic outlook. And then now shifting to a lot of these domestic developments, the international disruptions are already hammering the U.S. economy, as we've all talked about, which sets the stage for several executive and legislative moves. The current Strait of Hormuz situation continues. Markets stand to lose around 100 million barrels of oil every week. With every week, the waterway remains effectively closed. In response, President Trump is actively considering suspending the federal gas tax, which currently adds about 18 cents per gallon and about 24 for diesel. So you may have a little bit relief at the pump once this bill is considered next week, mind you. Senate Majority Leader John Thune acknowledged that the war in Iran has had a pretty profound impact in the short term on gas prices, but remained non-committal on a gas tax holiday. Thune noted we do have a highway trust fund, and it does perform a important service, cutting the gas tax, which would affect that, while adding that the best way to normalize prices is to reopen the strait. He said that if the president wants to make the argument, I'm sure everybody will give a chance to hear him out, but emphasized the need to consider impacts on transportation infrastructure. Now, it's important to note because in 2022, about 4 years ago, uh, there's actually a tweet from John Thune actually stating that this gas tax only gives the ruling party the ability to save face when it comes to high gas prices. And in 2022, who was president then? Joe Biden. So, with all of that, you can see that the flip flopping is completely happening when it comes to this gas tax. I can see it possibly passing next week, which would be great. Get that relief at the pump. But the real crucial part is going to be how long will they temporarily suspend it for? I know Josh Hawley has a bill that goes for 6 months, but it's really going to be determining how long they want to add that suspension, because with that suspension, there's also going to be a loss of funds and revenue that is not going to be coming to the United States government, given that suspension. So check back here next week on this specifically, as we will have more on this. And the administration is planning to temporarily reduce tariffs on beef imports. Who would have thought those Liberation Day tariffs have made everything worse? And they're looking to do this as soon as today to help address record high beef prices and increase the supply of steaks and ground beef from overseas. A former official has also revealed the existence of a secret catalog of pre-drafted executive orders ready to go that could let the administration do what one source called extraordinary things if needed. I have not seen what those executive orders are, but check back here on Wednesday, as we will have a breakdown as to what those executive orders are and what are those extraordinary things that the president and his administration are looking to do. Further on the legislative side, Republicans are advancing several key packages amid the economic strain and internal party tensions. The GOP-backed housing bill, formerly the 21st Century Road to Housing Act, which is the Senate version, or the Housing for the 21st Century Act, which is the House version, is one of the most significant housing measures in over 30 years. The Senate passed its bipartisan version in March 2026 by an overwhelming 89-10 vote. It is now heading back to the House for final reconciliation. The bill aims to tackle the deepening affordability crisis by boosting housing supply through streamlined permitting and zoning reforms, modernizing outdated federal programs like Home and RAD, cutting unnecessary regulatory burdens, providing incentives for new construction and the conversion of abandoned buildings into housing, and increasing local flexibility over development decisions. It also includes measures to limit large institutional investors from snapping up thousands of single-family homes, aligning with President Trump's earlier executive order on this issue. It's important to note that when Biden was in office, they did put up a bill to restrict, private equity firms and all these big firms buying in on these small homes. and it is nice to see that the administration is taking some steps forward to actually prioritize this bill, because as we talk, there hasn't really been any beneficial legislation that has come out of the House and or the Senate and or the administration, besides a few things here and there. Primarily, it has not been at the benefit of the American population. And then at the same time, all this is going on, the FISA Reauthorization Act has become a flashpoint over privacy concerns. The House version included a major rider known as the Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act, which would permanently prohibit the Federal Reserve from issuing, testing, or using a central bank digital currency directly to individuals maintaining personal accounts or employing it for monetary policy. Supporters argue this prevents potential government surveillance and financial tracking of everyday Americans. The provision has faced Senate pushback, leading to a short term extension while negotiations continue. So I believe that bill will also be considered this week, if not next week as well. When we last spoke about the FISA bill, they did pass it and it got punted for another like 30 days. So, I mean, 15 days. So we will see what those arguments are, and be sure to come back here to really dive into what those arguments are and where they stand. And separately, the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act, better known as the Clarity Act, is on track for a possible presidential signature by June. This landmark bipartisan crypto market structure bill, which already passed the House in July 2025 by a 249 134 vote, establishes clear federal rules for the road of digital assets. It draws a bright line between SEC jurisdiction over securities like restricted digital assets and CFTC oversight of decentralized digital commodities. This also creates a mature blockchain test for when tokens transition out of security status. It offers safe harbors of non custodial DeFi developers and validators, and imposes resignate res, registrations and anti-money laundering requirements on intermediaries. So Senator Bernie Morin has been a very vocal supporter, stating that the bill will finally break the stronghold on the banking cartel and has stifled innovation and protected incumbent financial powers, while positioning America as the undisputed crypto capital of the world. Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong, who has played a key role in shaping the legislation, is scheduled to speak at the Senate GOP steering lunch on Wednesday as the Senate Banking Committee prepares to mark up the crypto market structure bill on Thursday. So we will have everything for you from those talks with the senator on Thursday. So definitely please check back here. But it is great to see that, excuse me. It is great to see that this bill is moving forward, and also great to see that they actually are putting up a very well structured bill regarding cryptocurrency, because we know they were getting canceled and shut down left and right. So it is good to see that the Trump administration is taking the lead on this and is actively pushing for a streamlined approach, because Americans should be able to trade cryptocurrencies without the fears of being monitored, having their wallet shut down, or anything, or even be debanked, like how it was with COVID. I think outright that was a wrong move by Democrats. But when you're starting to see all of these rights all these wrongs start to be righted. So come back and check back with us on Friday about what has been going on with these talks, as well on Wednesday with some of these bills. And moving on, Speaker Mike Johnson will address Senate Republicans at their weekly lunch tomorrow amid ongoing inter-party tensions. He's expected to deliver a strong message of unity and stress the need for open lines of communication as Republicans prepare for the next round of major reconciliation legislation. The Secret Service director is also scheduled to attend the same Senate GOP lunch as Republicans weigh, including the roughly $1 billion and additional funding for Secret Service and their immigration enforcement bill. And it's terrible that we're seeing that this bill is fully going to be put up for a vote, and also that it is going to be used with taxpayer dollars. And on top of all of that, adding fuel to this controversy, Trump's reflecting pool renovation, which is part of the broader White House upgrades, is now projected to cost 13.1 million in taxpayer dollars, far exceeding the original 1.8 million promise. You see that, folks? He says one thing, this is what it's going to cost. Well, this is one it's going to this is what I'm promising, and it's completely the opposite of that. Critics argue that this represents a significant escalation in the use of public funds for personal and aesthetic upgrades at the White House, with no taxpayer money covering major overruns on what many view as luxury improvements rather than essential maintenance. And that's exactly what it is. It is just luxury improvements. There is no reasoning to have this $1 billion included in the bill at all. There's truly no reason to have taxpayer dollars being used for this funding for this bill. When you have Americans struggling, you have data centers sucking up resources, which we're going to get into next. Today, to AI data centers. So there has been a growing flashpoint in the rapid expansion of AI data centers across the United States, which is creating severe strains on water, power, and local communities. A massive wildfire is currently was burning in the Florida Everglades, stretching from Broward County all the way to Monroe County. The fire is only 20% contained and shows perfectly straight rectangular lines of fire that experts say match the exact footprint needed for a large data center. And Georgia, a data center under construction drained approximately 30 million gallons of water through two industrial scale hookups the local utility didn't even know existed. One installed without permission and the other not linked to any billing account. Residents only noticed when water pressure dropped dramatically. And isn't that something? They only realized once their water pressure dropped dramatically. These data centers are being propped up left and right, and they're being pushed to be propped up left and right. And you're seeing the extremes that they're going to prop up these data centers left and right. And it's truly to the cusp of how far are we going to go to incentivize and promote AI data centers that we're going to largely impact not just the environment, but not just the environment, individuals that are living around there. Like, how are you able to live out your daily lives when you have a data center that is basically a heat island, sucking up resources for water, and also driving up your electricity bill by 20% it's just one of those things that we're going to need Democrats to try to have a backbone on, because this is happening in every single state with these data centers. In Maryland, homeowners will pay an extra 1.6 billion on electric bills over the next decade to subsidize grid upgrades for data centers. In Colorado, the state told 1.5 million residents they cannot water their lawns amid a historic drought, yet officials continue greenlighting hyperscale AI data centers, each consuming as much water as the town of 50,000 people. This is what these people are passing left and right, while us, the average Americans, are struggling. We are losing this war to AI. And, residents near these facilities are reporting health issues, including dizziness, nausea, vertigo, headaches, insomnia, and anxiety from infrasound generated by cooling systems and gas turbines. Several local governments have enacted moratoriums while impacts are studied. And this is all comes on the cusp because last year the White House issued a executive order accelerating data center construction by slashing regulatory reviews, offering loans and grants, and opening federal lands for these projects. So from that initial executive order, you now have this full on sludge of AI data centers being propped up left and right around the countries and stealing your energy, your water, and your right of mind, realistically. And wanting to now move on to really the judicial side of things. Um, so there has been a lot that has taken place with regarding redistricting, and Democrats are looking to sharpen their strategies around redistricting and what happened in Virginia. And some Democrats are exploring aggressive options to potentially overturn the state Supreme Court recent ruling that invalidated new congressional districts and related congressional amendments. The majority leader has ruled out the extreme measure proposing forcing the retirement of Virginia Supreme Court judges to secure a different ruling, calling it too extreme. Democrats are once again playing the high ground. Nationally, there are growing talks of legislation imposing an 18-year term limit on Supreme Court justices. And the Supreme Court has scheduled 3 key cases for conference this Thursday, May 14th, that will decide whether victims of the voting discrimination can either sue under the Voting Rights Act, which Congress passed and reauthorized multiple times, to specifically protect them. With this Supreme Court, many observers worry there is potential or even more damage to come from the Voting Rights Act. And we have our famed co-host joining.
I am so sorry, everybody, and Mikkel. It has been a hectic day for me, with full of unexpected delays. But I am here. I am not queer, and I am ready to talk, Mikkel. How have you been, and what have you talking about right now?
So I am now moving on to kind of what the strategies are and what the thinking is for the Democratic Party given redistricting. But before I fully dive into that, just letting topics be known that we touched on, just covered U.S. Iran war, what's going on with Strait of Hormuz, also about Iran thinking about, well, considering cutting the internet cables, which are extremely important to Gulf states, Asia, and a lot of other countries within the Middle East.
Oh
On
yeah,
top of that, we moved to
I just
talking
want to.
about, yeah,
I
yeah.
just want to
Mhm.
add. Did you talk about what exactly is so significant about those cables? I mean, people just think internet cables is how
Yeah,
the internet works.
yeah, we dove into that, kind of like how how much percentage of internet and financial data that those cables themselves run through. I believe it's like 30% of the world's internet, especially within that region, is
Yeah,
just concentrated with those cables. So if they do become cut, you can expect a lot more, especially on the internet and energy side, to take a very, very much larger hit. And then
yeah.
from that, we moved on to talking about the Israeli government, of course. Yep, talking
A
about
topic
how,
that we can't get enough of, and I think anybody who is paying attention to Western politics can't get enough of it because they are rightfully so the ones who are a very
yeah,
hands-on player of what's going on.
no, very much hands on. And I was speaking to one Netanyahu's 60-minute interview stating, the war is not over until we have Iran's enriched uranium. And then I was speaking to how, like, obviously that is a sticking point. That is not going to happen. Iran stands strong that they will not give up their enriched uranium.
Yeah.
Also about how it's a farce, but during his 60-minute interview, he actually stated that he wanted to have the U.S. bring down its financial and military support of Israel down to zero. And it was noted
Who said this
that this
on
was
60 Minutes?
this is Netanyahu. He said this
Okay.
himself, but it's important to note that this was also stated in 1996. So it's the same thing like the whole Iran has a nuke. You stated
Yeah.
every so years that you think that you're committed to this, but no, it's really you just want to be so resourceful and so military strong that you can, go around and do all of these horrendous acts without having someone to come and check you, or at least being able to check the person who has always been able to check you. And then we
And I
moved
also want to
into,
add
yeah.
that a big part of it is that, I mean, Netanyahu, whenever he speaks English, it's propaganda. I just want to throw that out there. Anytime he on Israeli national television, where people listening are generally Hebrew and speak, I mean, or generally Israeli and speak modern Hebrew. If he's speaking in English, it's because he wants the Western audience to be the ones to hear it, not the Israeli audience. And we've seen a night and day difference between what the Israelis, Netanyahu, Ben Gvir, and Smotrich and more will say in English, and then a complete opposite of what they'll say in Hebrew. I mean, there's the one infamous joke, because it's infamous and because it's true, that if you were to go on X and translate a tweet from in Hebrew from an Israeli, it's odds are some of the most heinous stuff you'll read in your life. It'll be
Oh,
like,
I bet.
"Oh well, why do we care about these kids? They're terrorists," things like that. And this just the idea of, we don't want the U.S. military support. We want it to be zero. That it's clear what he's just trying to say. He's like, we don't need or want you guys' support, but we help the United States. We're not asking or requiring your guys' support, but we help you
Yeah,
guys, and that's why we have the support. We don't need
literally.
it, but you guys and we help each other. We're a symbiotic relationship, and that's exactly not what this is. This is a parasitic
No.
relationship where they leech off of us massively.
Yeah, literally. That's
Literally, I mean,
literally what
literally,
it
it's
is.
like a tick sucking off the blood of the dog, and the tick's gotten almost as big as the dog.
Yeah, literally. And from that, we moved on to there was this scathing Atlantic article, which basically stated that the US has lost the war with Iran. And
Yeah.
I was speaking to the importance of it because of the individual that wrote it. Robert Kagan, who obviously I've said this already, but he's a very prominent individual when it comes to advocating for war and regime change across the Middle East. He was a very huge advocate for the 2003 Iraq war. If I'm not mistaken, he is related to his spouse is someone that was in the Bush administration during the Iraq war as well. But I could be speaking on that wrongly. If anyone wants to check me, that's perfectly fine. But yes, it's important to note the individual that wrote the article, because they are someone that pushes for regime change and for these things to happen. And for him to note that the United States has basically lost it,
Yeah.
it's a pretty damning thing to point
To
to.
say and point out.
Yeah, exactly. And then moving to, obviously 62% of Americans believe the US has lost the war, 13% think we've won it somehow. Um,
That's that propaganda.
yeah, that's clearly that propaganda, 60% of adults now view Israel unfavorable, up 20 points in just 4 years, and Netanyahu blaming its social media. And I was just basically talking to, like, no, it's all of the atrocities that you have desecrated on all these Middle Eastern states.
And on
All of
top of
the
that, I mean,
Yeah,
they're playing the wild card, what the wild double card, because normally you always the Democrats supported Israel because they viewed it as like the humanitarian democratic country in the Islamic religious militant fueled Middle East. So they're like, well, this is the only democracy. It's the only one not fueled by religious extremism. It's the only one that actually allows voters to represent themselves. XYZ gives everyone equal rights. That was the angle they argued with Democrats. With the Republicans, they argued, we're the only country in the Middle East who is fighting against Islamic terrorism. And based off of what happened to America with 9/11, you guys need us to help with Islamic terrorism. So it's like, it's been two things. It's been one, the Democrats now see that Israel isn't this stalwart human rights bastion in the Middle East. They've seen everything but. That's why the Democrats care most about, honestly, human rights and how people live. That's
yeah,
the number
pretty
one
much.
thing. That's the number one thing Democrats care about, point blank, is human rights and social safety nets. And when they saw very clearly on a party and national basis how little Israel actually cares about human rights and equality and more, it just began thinking of like, well, why are we supporting this country? And then the Republicans also see, they're like, well, we see these people pulling us into wars left and right. I mean, we originally thought these people were here to help us deal with this Islamic terrorism. Now we're seeing that not only do they actually fund Islamic terrorism, because fun fact, Israel Benjamin Netanyahu back in 2016 admitted to paying Hamas
Yeah,
hundreds of
literally admitted
thousands
to it.
of dollars a month to keep them armed and fed and maintained, because he said that they bring peace in Gaza. So Israel funded Hamas, said they bring peace, and then went ahead and then pulled the October 7th move, which is with the Hannibal Directive. Israel killed more of its own people than Hamas did. But back to the point being is that so they lost the Democrats there, and then they lost the
Oh yeah.
Republicans there. So now
Well,
they're just really trying to fight for this angle of, wow, we don't actually need American support. We're just helping you guys.
no,
And I don't
they're gonna need it because
they're gonna
that
need it. They're not gonna get it.
autopsy report from the Democrats was literally because we did not stand up against Gaza.
Yeah, literally.
Which blows
I
my
know so
mind.
many
It
MJ,
blows my
there's
mind that
thousands of
that's the
Muslims in
yeah.
the mosque I go to. They all voted Joe Biden. Basically 95% of them Joe Biden. I'm talking thousands of people.
Yeah.
And for when it came to Kamala Trump, they all voted Jill Stein or didn't vote at all. I voted Chase Oliver, the libertarian, because he wanted to end
Listen,
war.
Jill Stein, can't believe I actually used to like her back in the day. Now,
You don't like Jill Stein?
dude,
You
I've
think she's just
seen the
like
stuff
a
that
pop up every
she's
4 years
recently
kind of individual?
posted. I've just seen the stuff that she's recently posted. 100% just Russia. I mean, I was never one to think that, but I started going down the list, and I was like, not going down the list, but
Wait,
more recent like tweets and stuff. I was like looking through. I'm like, this is not
so
the
how
Jill Stein
when
from
you
all the
say
way back then.
I gotta
Like,
say, I'm Eastern European, so it's a stark split between hating and supporting Russia. And when you say that she's pro-Russia and that you dislike her for that, what points do you mention that with? Like, do you dislike the fact that she likes Russia at all? Do you dislike it because of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, or do you think it's just unusual for a Democrat or a left-leaning individual to support the Russian government and country?
no, I don't think that it's anything Democrat or Republican to really support the Russian people. I feel like as just an American, the Russian individuals, they are an adversary, but I would say more of a intelligence wise adversary. And the way that her tweets were being laid out, from my understanding, it was more so on that intelligence advantageousness of Russia with the United States. And for me, I was kind of like, well, we need to keep those types of things a little separate when it comes to intelligence with our adversaries. Like, I understand the importance, and I understand that Russia really isn't the biggest, baddest guy out there. It's
Yeah.
Israel, but
China and Israel,
yeah, China and
Israel
Israel
in
at
terms of
least.
direct leeching off is China in terms of actual competition.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, since we're bringing up China, we were talking about how Trump is going to China, the first president, I think, since Nixon to go visit China. And he's got a whole convoy of millionaires, billionaires, Mark Zuckerberg, all of those, Elon Musk, all those individuals are going to be going with him. But it's important to note that, yes, Trump, Taco Trump, he talks tough on China, X, Y, and Z, this, that, and the third, but he is talking to allow them to invest $1 billion. No, sorry, 1 billion or $1 trillion into United States to set up factories and industries. I'm like, didn't we have legislation on Chinese individuals and agencies not being able to purchase land within the United States?
Literally.
Didn't we remove TikTok from the Chinese so that we
Oh
could
my
just?
God,
I'm
that
like,
whole
what?
argument, you just
I'm
sprouted
like,
out a whole fire in me that I put out because it
I'm
was
just
put
like,
out on purpose.
I'm just like, I'm like, we talk all this tough nonsense left and right, Xi Jinping, and I think that truly this deal, this investment is uh, a tugment, like a pull to China, like, hey, come on, like, help us out with Iran. You
Yeah,
have Iran's ear, like, help us out. Like, we'll let you invest, all this inside America. Yeah, we'll let you do this if you can get us into the strait that was already open before the war happened. Right. It's mind blowing. So now we're going to give China even more leverage within the United States, even though we started cutting them off. Blows my mind.
yeah.
But yeah, we talked about China, and then we moved on to Latin America. What was going on with those leak recordings? I don't know if you've heard of this. Um, if I'm not mistaken, it's in the notes. But Israel, Argentina were looking to set up a social media base within. I forget which country it was, but it was to target Colombia and Venezuelan president, basically. Social media campaign to destabilize Southern America.
Yeah.
And that comes on the cusp of the president, talking about how, he's dismayed at how the Cubans have been able to keep their government still intact. And him and Lindsey Graham have been, having a love fest over wanting to go over and take over Cuba. So yes, there was a secret social media uh, group company put together to try to destabilize regional Southern American countries, realistically. And I mean, there's been nothing that has come from that once that information was released, of course. Um, but it's just damning to see that not only is United States, Israel, and Argentina the three biggest partners on prioritizing Israel wanted to set this up to destabilize Southern America, so then that would give more credence to the United States to go in and just take over these countries. That's clearly a reasoning why we're trying to go into Cuba, why we went after Maduro and Venezuela. He's a horrible people, and we gotta take him out.
I mean,
That's
it's
basically
really
what the premise is.
they really are gonna pull out whatever they can. I mean, I remember when the Venezuela incident happened. If you just put out enough propaganda, this is for peace, this is for diplomacy, this is for you literally just need to hit the buzzwords, and the people that support your party will fall for it. I remember I was talking to this one smart individual. He's actually from our wrestling team. I won't throw any names out because I don't want to dox anybody on our podcast.
Yeah,
But I'll say it. I'll mention to you after we're off live. But he was talking about. He was like, "Well, I think it was a good thing that we got rid of Maduro because I think he was causing destabilization in South America and there in his oil and with the country's oil as well being provided to our enemies. It's only a good move to further stabilize the South America and also to claim that oil for us." And I said, I was like, I'm not here to promote nor defend Maduro nor the Venezuelan government.
literally
I'm
though.
not at all. And the issue is that they say this is for one thing when they do it for another. And I mean, there's so many jokes about this put out there on media. Even Family Guy makes fun of it. The idea of, well, we want war, but we don't want to be known as the people or the country that like war. So because of that, because we want to show ourselves as being a bit more civil or not war fueled, we will go to war, but we will say we don't want to go to war. And so that mentality, that joke is actually very true. Anytime you see the US government go to a war and act like you just know it's fully planned and there's something not based off of peaceful diplomacy at hand there. When it came to Venezuela, they didn't get rid of Maduro to stabilize South America. I mean, hell, when it came to stabilizing South America, Trump was trying to intervene in Brazil's own domestic policies regarding the
Yeah,
corruption trial with its former president by hitting them with 50% tariffs, despite the fact they were our literal only trade partner. Not the only, but they were one of four, literally one of four in the entire world, and our biggest trade partner with a surplus. And yet we threatened 50% tariffs on them because of we wanted to get involved in their domestic politics. This has nothing to do, nor does it
yeah,
ever have anything to do with wanting stabilization or wanting peace or anywhere in any specific part of the country. It's all about wanting to control more of the world using the U.S. military and economic strong arm. And when it came to getting rid of Maduro, that's exactly what it was. We literally made up a warrant for him just so we can arrest him and get him out of his own country. I mean, imagine if trying to do that to us, saying that Trump committed international war crimes, which he has, and then use that to come in and take him out and indict him to China. Imagine that. Just
yeah.
imagine.
Just imagine.
The people who supported the Maduro kidnapping will go crazy. And
Yeah, they would
for
go
good reason,
completely
because you
crazy.
can't just take another country's leader, especially if you're not, even if you're at war with them, it's a war crime. When the Bosnian War occurred and the Bosnian president was seized by the Republika Srpska army, that was a war crime. That was one of the few times the U.S. and NATO actually got involved, and then they had to finish it off with a trade with prisoners, because they knew, well, if we kill the president of this country, then we're the bad guys, because they are. You can't kill or kidnap the president of a democratic of a country. You just can't. You just can't.
Yeah, you just can't.
And
You literally can't.
you literally just can't. And it doesn't matter if you agree with their politics. It doesn't matter if you think they're bad people. It doesn't matter what you think about them. You just can't. It's not our job. If the people want to get rid of him, they can get rid of him. It's not
Yep.
our job to say, oh, these people clearly hate their president. Let's go in there and change
You
their
say
country for them.
something very important that I literally just remembered, that details Iran. I was listening to someone on a TikTok actually kind of detailing why we got here with Iran. So it was originally, I think, in like the 1900s, I'm going to say 1980s, possibly 70s ish. Iran was actually having free, fair elections. They elected someone democratically. The
This is
U.S.
so funny.
actually went in. We went in and removed the democratically elected leader in Iran. And the Ayatollahs is what came next. So we removed the democratically placed person and we put in the dictator that has now led to all of this, to where we are specifically now. What also tied to that is, of course, that 2017 meeting between Trump and Netanyahu, the tearing up of the JPOC. I think that's JPOC. Is that JPOC? I think that's the right acronym for it. However, with Obama's nuclear deal, that leads us all to Iran becoming more dictatorial, more authoritarian, more secular, and then one being able to enrich their uranium because they're no longer in the deal. So all of these things built up to the situation we have now, but exploded because of the removal of that deal, because it now became we're stopping Iran from getting bombs and all of these things. But they never had it when that deal was in place. They had enrichment up to, I think, 30%, I want to say, something of that nature, 60%, where you needed 90% for an actual bomb. So it's like we had them at bay with that first deal that Obama did, but ultimately tore up by Trump. And, we are now, unfortunately, in this situation. But that was kind of the overall general, I should say, talking notes for the international section. For the domestic section, that was more so I was basically getting to diving into kind of like the midterms election and what democratic strategies are going to be for the redistricting and so forth, because even South Carolina is is redoing their map and removing John Cryan, I believe, removing his seat. I also believe Alabama is moving as well to remove their two black majority seats as well. So these things are taking place very rapidly. But on the electoral standpoint, this is about Trump's Truth Social post about a election integrity force that's apparently going to be happening when these elections take place. And as well, he's even stated,
Election, and that's what I mean. Election integrity force. Man, the
yeah,
Democrats do it, the Republicans do it. The Patriot Act is a fantastic example
it's
of all
it's
this.
just like a house of cards,
Yeah.
voting centers. That's what they call them,
Yeah.
voting centers. Literally, this is exactly playing in our hands. And actually, that's season 4 of House of Cards. That season 4 is playing pretty well in real time, realistically, when you think about it.
I gotta
But yeah,
watch season
he's
4. Honestly, I'm still in season 2. I gotta get through that.
oh yeah, you gotta get to
Because he
season.
becomes president at the end of season 2, right?
Yes, my favorite episode is I think it's episode 5, episode 1. where he walks in and they're trying to talk about him on the Senate House floor, whichever one it is. He sits down and someone gives their time to him, and he just gets on stage and he just starts bashing everyone. Great scene in my opinion. But yes, this election integrity army in every single state this November, and obviously this is building on a lot of the efforts with thousands of poll watchers, legal teams, and volunteers. And also, this is a reflection on the broader aggressive election integrity strategy that connects directly to other Trump backed initiatives, such as strong support for the SAVE Act, which requires documentary proof of citizenship, which is a higher threshold than getting your ID or anything else at the DMV. You also have federal voter registration and directing states to remove non-citizens from voter rolls. Nationwide, Justice Department demanding for complete voter registration databases, which obviously have highly sensitive personal data on there.
Yeah.
And then you have all of these FBI raids on election facilities, such as Atlanta and the Fulton County area. I mean, sorry, you have Atlanta and as well as in Fulton County, Georgia, where ballots were seized and records were seized, and trying to tie them to past fraud claims. And this is just a continuation on the barreling, on the beating of the drum, of the warning drum that Donald Trump is actively seeking to suspend these midterm elections. He stated that, Republicans should not even care about the midterms. Don't even worry about them. He's saying that because he's running on the cusp that we're not even going to have them at all. There could be emergency powers in place if we are at continued war or intensified war. Those things could allow for an emergency order to take place. Mohammed, you didn't hear, but there is a memo with various executive orders, a secret memo that Donald Trump can actually activate that would give him extreme powers over various things. And then when you couple that with what the Supreme Court has done to redistricting the Voting Rights Act, and as well as expanding presidential powers in certain aspects, you truly start to see that it's not just fairy tales that Donald Trump is actively seeking
Yeah.
to remove these elections from happening. It's pretty much a real threat that people need to get serious about, just as people needed to get serious about the Voting Rights Act. And specifically on that, before we get to that, Muhammad, do you have anything?
No, I do not. I will say this actually. Despite or no matter what Trump and his admin may have planned, I think one of the few things that is a very strong and consistent opinion among the Republicans is state rights when it comes to elections. Not so that doesn't mean I don't think the legislative branch of the government will say anything against what Trump's doing, but I do think similar to how the tariffs worked out, I think this will be an easy 7-2, 8-1 decision because Clarence Harms is insane. A
Yeah.
7-2, 8-1 decision against whatever Trump may try to do for the elections when it comes to federal oversight.
Yeah, definitely. And the next case I do think they'll be taking up that's grand is going to be the birthright citizenship case. So I know Trump did, of course, took the time to put out a tweet about it, basically saying it would be damning to see that both misruling on tariffs and this misruling on birthright citizenship. Which I mean, I think that they're gonna get this right.
I
Which
mean,
means
yeah, it'd
it's
be
the
interesting to
Supreme
see because
Court.
the language is pretty dang clear.
Yeah, language is pretty dang clear. So it definitely will be interesting to see what happens after this whole debacle with the Voting Rights Act, and specifically on that Voting Rights Act. Justice Samuel Alito has drawn sharp criticism for relying on apparently misleading voter turnout data in his majority opinion in the landmark case, which obviously significantly weakens Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act by making it far harder for plaintiffs to prove vote dilution. The ruling In the ruling, Alito claimed that black voters now participate in elections at similar rates as the rest of the electorate, even turning out at higher rates than white voters in two of the five most recent presidential elections nationwide in Louisiana. The assertion used to argue that the kind of entrenched racial discrimination, the voting right, the VRA, was designed to combat has largely disappeared, which was copied almost verbatim by a friend of the court brief filed by the Trump Justice Department. However, the data relied on a disputed and non preferred methodology, calculating turnout as a percentage of the total voting age population, which includes non citizens, felons, and other ineligible voters.
Yeah.
Voting experts and analysts note that the standard approach uses citizen voting age population, under which the claim does not hold up strongly. Black turnout exceeded white turnout in Louisiana only once, and that was in 2012.
Yeah, I was gonna say I just want to add a little bit of snippet. I live in Baltimore, a majority
Yeah.
black city, if you know American geography. And I was and the turnout in the city for elections is generally lower than the average nationally. And I was looking into it once, and I remember this is actually very interesting. And it makes complete sense why. It was a lot of voters in Baltimore asked, like, well, how do you feel about, what's going on? How do you think this is going to go on? Are you going out to vote? What's going on? And they basically said that, like, well, we're not voting because the last time we did vote was Obama, and we thought stuff would change, and then nothing changed under Obama. So if nothing's going to change under Obama, the first black president and the guy who we thought would change everything for us, why would we vote for anybody when we don't think anything's going to happen? Because
Yeah.
clearly it doesn't. And yeah, that's exactly what a lot of people are thinking is, why would I vote if nothing's going to change? I mean, I think right now might be a good example of why you might vote for someone even if you don't think things can get better, because things can get worse.
Yeah, they can get a lot worse, and they have been
Yeah.
getting a lot worse when you vote for the wrong person. Like I had a TikTok on my Instagram page today actually about a Trump supporter voted 3 times for him, and basically was so mad about the gas prices, and she was like, I must be an idiot because I voted for him 3 times.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you're not. I'm like, no, you're not an idiot. You were just, sold a
Optimistic.
bag of goods that you really thought was going to happen, and
Yeah.
the optimism of that blinded you from the truth from what he was actually saying. And that's a lot of
Yeah.
individuals that are now feeling like that. That's Tucker Carlson, who now is apologetic on even spousing and even putting out Donald Trump's message, his campaign, and all of that. You have Joe Rogan, who is now backtrailing on a lot of these things. You have I forget who's the one guy with the mustache who's always on with Charlemagne. I forget who he
Mustache was Charlemagne. I don't know. I actually
the
don't know.
real he's a real funny guy. I can't think of his name. But however, he is someone that talked about Trump, bash Kamal, and all these things, and now he's even turning on the other side. So it's really just telling that people are not getting what they wished for,
Yeah.
but they're getting what they voted for. Unfortunately, very
Yeah.
much so. Unfortunately, and
Unfortunately.
yeah, really here is the last piece that we have here is just really on the economic picture, and really what's how stark the disconnect is between Wall Street and Main Street. So, as we all know, the gap has never been wider. U.S. consumer sentiment fell 1.6 points in May to an all-time low of 48.2, and at the same time, the S&P 500 is trading near a record high, 77,400. While sentiment is now 13% below its 2008 financial crisis threshold and well beneath the 1980s recession bottom, current conditions have plunged 18.8% year over year to a record low as real income expectations have declined for the third straight month. And meanwhile, the wealthiest 10% of households own 78% of all equities. Goldman Sachs notes that the 10-week Strait of Hormuz closure has caused only moderate global economic disruption so far, but thanks to high oil inventories, demand shifts to renewables, reduced travel, strong fiscal support, and the AI boom. These are very easy financial conditions for a lot of this to turn downward if and the bank slightly lowered the U.S. recession risk to 25%, where warns risk remain elevated due to and low savings levels. Basically, this comes from weakening consumer support, obviously higher energy costs, and lower wage growth, and also the fertilizer shock that we've been talking about. The UN officials have warned that tens of millions of people risk hunger if supplies stay blocked in the Strait of Hormuz. So you're going to see a lot of shocks start coming within the United States. We're already seeing the energy and oil and the grocery store to an extent. Trump is trying to remove that tariff on beef to try to make it a little bit more relief for individuals when they go to the grocery store, but it's like if these tariffs and this war was never started, he would probably be in a much better position than he is now,
Yeah,
and a much
absolutely,
better position. I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, even looking at like the housing crisis, 65% of families cannot afford a new home. A new home and home sellers are now outnumbering buyers by a record of 630,000. Just 25% of US non-homeowners expect to buy a home within the next 5 years. That is the lowest reading since Gallup first asked the question in 2013. This is down from 30% in 2025 and 49% in 2017. Meanwhile, 45% of non homeowners say they do not expect to buy a home in the foreseeable future, up 28% in 2013. The permission is especially sharp among younger Americans like me and you, Muhammad, with
Yeah.
only 29% of non-homeowners aged 18 to 34 expecting to buy within 5 years, down from 57% between 2013 and 2015. And then on top of all of that, you have auto loan and credit card delinquencies have hit all-time highs, even as the stock market hovers near record levels. So this is why Muhammad always speaks to the stock market isn't a true representation of the economy, because yes, the stock market can be up, but grocery prices are expected to keep rising for months because of higher diesel costs tied directly to this war.
Dude, they're at like $4.50 in Maryland
Four and a
now.
half
It's
dollars.
getting bad.
Yeah, it's getting bad. And I'm like, the people that understand this is what happened with during COVID, when trucks stopped moving across the country because of the standstill in the beginning, that we did see rising costs, and then things started to slowly, dive down because no one was on the road. But yes, all of these various things are compounding aggressively against the average American, and it seems there's no relief that's going to come. Muhammad, you didn't hear, but there is a very huge housing act that is looking to get passed. This very good signage that it will get passed. It's very very good on what it can do for the middle class. But this is again talking to how the Trump administration really hasn't gone far enough within that benefit for the middle class.
At
Like yes, we are
all.
now having this housing bill after a year and 5 months. And now he's also looking at the Clarity Act, which will provide for more central, more cryptocurrency access to average Americans, which is good. It doesn't allow another level of oversight from the federal government, because we know that during COVID they were debanking and all these other things that this will not allow for that to take place.
Yeah.
So it is good to see that at least two bills have some good measure towards it, as well as they're looking at suspending the federal gas tax as well. I don't know if you saw that. That's looking to be taken up next week as well. So with those three bills themselves, there could be some relief that comes to Americans, if not in the short term, probably within the long term. But with all of this, just since January 1st, we've seen gasoline prices, excuse me, Surge 103%, heating oil 84%, Brent crude and oil both up 66%, European gas up 56%, and coal up 23%. And with all of that, this week is also going to be an absolute whirlwind. You had today, you that brings Warsh stepping in as the Fed chair. Tomorrow is the April CPI. Wednesday is the April PPI. Thursday features retail sales data plus President Trump flying to Beijing for the Trump Xi summit, which is going to be Thursday, Friday, which he's going to be accompanied by a powerful delegation of top U.S. business executives, obviously including individuals, the heads of Citi, Apple, Tesla, Cargill, BlackRock, Boeing, Visa, Cisco, Lumina, Coherence, Micron, Qualcomm, Meta, Goldman Sachs, GE Aerospace, and Blackstone. All of it with the Iran ceasefire status still unknown, of course. So that is all that I actually have for today. And we will have a written piece out tomorrow on all that is going to be taking place. But definitely check back on our episode Wednesday because a lot of these legislative movements will be taking place over the next few days, as well as new information regarding Iran, Israel, and as well as this trip with President Trump going to China as well. So definitely look back at our previous episodes and definitely turn on notifications for our future episodes. And Mohammed?
That's really all I've got to add as well. Damn, it'll be interesting to see how things go with China. Honestly, I'm never really generally optimistic when it
Yeah,
comes to
no.
Trump's trade negotiations because as much as he likes to think that he's a great at the game, great trading, I really don't think he is. So we'll see what happens and we'll see where it goes. But I really think that it it'll be a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely agree. It's going to be a whole lot of nothing. I see China, obviously getting that and being able to, make that investment within the United States, being able to once again be able to operate businesses within the United States after we kick them out with TikTok and all of the other members of Congress legislation without prohibiting them from buying U.S. land. I think we're just going to be throwing that all that down to the curb, and we're going to be let's just say cozying up to China to be able to get them to hammer down Iran on this ceasefire. So I think that's the whole reasoning for all of this, the investment details, all of that realistically. But as always, to our listeners, thank you again for joining us today on Behind the Ballot, where we keep politics engaged, balanced, and informative. Stay curious, stay critical, and stay involved. I'm Mikkel Jenkins, and until next time, keep looking beyond the headlines and behind the ballot.
And this is Muhammad Alec as well, signing off. Thank you all for joining us. God bless you all. God bless America.